our Calling Up community. This is Claudia Alick, and I am here to give you part 2 of MAGA Hat Kids Harass Indigenous Veteran. So in my last video, I had a couple of inaccuracies that I should start with clarifying. First, I labeled my video as unresearched, and that's not true. It's just unresearched according to my own kind of exacting standards. Like, I'm not a journalist, I'm just reacting and reflecting on stuff, but I am a nerd, and I like to have as much content and information as possible before I give you my opinion on something. Which means I'm usually really well informed. So this video was only based on me having seen a video clip of the young man harassing the Indigenous man. So I saw the young man harassing the Indigenous man, but I did not see any kind of video footage that told me why he was harassing him or what happened before he started harassing him in that way, and the group harassing them in that way. It was based on reading a couple of articles that did not have the whole story, also having seen some tweets, and then the next day reading an article that was giving the mother's side of what happened and her justifying her son's actions because her son had been, by her words, attacked by black Muslims. So I published my video. Actually, let me go back to giving you some more inaccuracies. So, the other inaccuracy that I had in this was, of course, I inaccurately labeled the performance of what took place. I labeled the MAGA hat wearing teens as interrupting the Indigenous people's performance, when in fact it was the Indigenous people interrupting the performance that was happening with the MAGA hat teens and the 4 black Israelites. So that's what that was. So the second I publish my video, I'm about to go do my nerdy research, and so I'm pulling up the video, because it's an hour and 40 minutes long, and so I'm gonna watch that while I'm doing some prep work for the Martin Luther King Day celebration, and that's when I noticed that I'm getting all kinds of activity. Now here's the thing, I had not shared my video yet. I mean, I published it, but I'm not an influencer, so this tells me something. Usually I make a video, I get a link, I email the link, or I post the link to the limited number of people who are interested in the calling up practice and the specific piece of justice-based stuff we're talking about, and that's what that is. And I love YouTube for allowing me to be able to do that. In this case, because we operate on a radical generosity model, so the videos aren't private. I'm not charging anybody money to get access to, especially this kind of raw. I'm just giving you a review of what's happening in the real world using some of the tools of calling up. In this case, I publish it, and within seconds, I've got 20, 30 people interacting and commenting and being like, "You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong." So this tells me that there's a national conversation taking place, because it's a national. They're not engaging with any of the content of the video, really. They're not talking about was it a microassault or was it not a microassault? They're just saying, "You're wrong. It's bullshit. You have the story wrong. The kid was in the right." The kid was always in the right. Why? Because the kid is a signifier. MAGA hat kid is a signifier for all MAGA hat represents all of that gigantic coalition of humans. They understand this is a national conversation, and the values of MAGA hat kid are what we're getting called out. Like the student himself individually, yeah. But ultimately, this is a larger conversation. And frankly, I don't think we should be saying this kid's name. I don't think we need to have this kid's name in our mouth, because I'm not mad at this kid. I'm mad at his parents, and I'm mad at the school, and I'm also mad at them continuing to deny what happened. And instead of making this a moment of calling up, they're just calling us all down. I just made that up, but I believe in it. I'm going to do an entire video on calling down later, because I just made that up. But they are trying to bring us, instead of calling up, instead of saying, "Hey, we want to acknowledge the bad thing that happened," and not do that anymore, what they want to do is say, "The bad thing never even happened. It wasn't even a bad thing that happened. The bad thing happened to us. My son didn't do a bad thing. The bad thing happened to my son. He's a victim, and everything he does was right. And also, nothing the school does is wrong." So that was interesting. But instead of indulging in those comments, I first do all my research and watch all my videos. So I watched the hour and 40 minutes raw footage of everything. I watched the CNN that has a lovely interview with the Indigenous man telling his side of the story. So I watch all this other stuff and I read some more articles about it. So now I'm about to do my second video. Now this was yesterday, but then my sister calls me and she's like, "Girl, I was right." And I was like, what are you right about? And she was like, "Girl, have you heard about this MAGA hat kid thing?" And I was like, "Of course I heard about this MAGA hat thing. Don't you read my YouTube videos? Don't you look at my YouTubes?" Of course she doesn't look at my YouTubes. She's not part of the calling up community. Not an influencer, not even with my family. So she'd been having a passionate conversation on Facebook. I've been on Twitter. Her conversation on Facebook was all about the same thing. Now, her people were suggesting that this Indigenous person was in the right, and that the Black Israelites were in the wrong. And I have to admit that I actually engaged a little bit in this piece of discourse as well. I did a couple of tweets that were like, "Yo, Black Israelites, they attack everyone. So, I just want to circumvent the white genocide, white people are being attacked." Like, that's not what was taking place. That wasn't the dynamic. Even if the Black Israelites called the young white kids crackers, which they did. Which, I mean, of all of the expletives in the world, it's one of the most adorable. So yeah, they called them crackers. That happened. But again, Black Israelites, that's part of their shtick, which I'm going to go into in just a moment. So my sister and I, we have this amazing conversation. We are both nerdy and have watched the entirety of the raw footage and all of the other ancillary resources. So we have a dramaturgical conversation about these performances that took place. And I want to share with you now the breakdown that I have clarity about after talking with her. So, performance number 1 is the Black Israelites. The Black Israelites, they do a performance where they are in a public space and they heckle the crowd and they bait you into reacting with them by saying stuff that you are going to disagree with. They want you to argue with them so that they can say why their viewpoints are right. Because when they're when they're just yelling their stuff, nobody's really paying attention. But if they're having an argument with another person, a crowd comes and now it's a show. And you're in the worst role possible because they argue this stuff all the time. Now, but also it doesn't matter if your arguments are really good and you're winning the argument, because they're not trying to win the argument. They just want to have the argument and they want to keep it going as long as possible so they can get as many eyeballs to connect to the thing that they are doing. They are trolling in real life. They are making you debate the undebatable. Like, I'm not going to debate my right to be a queer woman. But they had me on the street debating my right to be a queer Black woman. Isn't that a great trick, right? That's what they do. It's a terrible role also because the only choice you have is to leave. And then you leave being like, all right, well, there's no winning that argument. I just lost because I engaged in it, and now I feel disempowered and kind of dirty and a little humiliated, and that sucked, and kind of a little frustrated and angry, and then that's how you leave. So that's the experience I had being inside their performance. Now, the Black Israelites share a lot of the same beliefs around denying women particular rights as these Covington High School students' school and parents do. And the kids do too, I guess, because they were there promoting the things that they believe in, right? So they were there for the same March for Life, anti-women's rights thing. Like, they were both there for that same show, huh? Now, the Black Israelites, they're baiting, they get the kids leave, the kids come back. The kids come back with music and choreography. Now, I'm being a little hyperbolic, but, like, they're doing their school fight song. They've got the tomahawk chant. And can I just do a little comment? So, Covington High School, this is the high school that in 2015 had that terrible incident with all the blackface at the sports event. And I'm like, guys, we talked to you about this 4 years ago. We did a national call out. So I'm now thinking that we need to do something that's about calling up. Because we called out that school. We were like, that's wrong. Everybody was like, that's wrong. But apparently the school hasn't done much to change the things that it is teaching its students. Because they still have their students doing something that is, I don't know, like a disrespectful thing to like an entire culture of humans that were genocided by white people in the United States. Like, they're doing this. in order, as a signifier for dominating the opposition. I'm horrified that this is something the school has them do. But I'm not surprised. All right, so that's performance number one. Performance number two is the kids coming in, Now, at this point, what happens next? Like in the performative score of the Black Israelites, they don't back down. Also, frankly, in the moment that they're in, with like 30 super hyped students, like the students have come back, and I can't really speculate as to what they did when they left. But like, they came back with like, they got their insults. They got all the stuff they want to say that is not anti-Black Israelites, because they don't know what Black Israelites are, so they're just doing anti-Black stuff. Which is complicated because there's a Black kid in the crowd because he's one of the students there. So you've got this taking place. I don't know if I want to say the poor Black Israelites, because they are the ones that did the first inciting thing. But then the kids left, and then the Cames back in, and they started the thing, right? So like the performance that was interrupted was not a performance that was actually incited by the Black Israelites. The performance that was interrupted was the part 2 revenge performance that the students were rolling in with. And the students, they were not going to probably respect the rules of engagement, the performative score, that was like, oh, we just have like a verbal banter and then you leave frustrated. They weren't going to respect that. They were like, we're teenagers. We're going to win. We're here to win the culture war. So like, that's what's going on. And how could that have ended? There's an age dynamic going on, right? So these are young adults. These are people who have the physical and verbal abilities to do the same harm that adults do, but their brains aren't done growing yet, which means they aren't thinking about consequences, and violence could ensue. They could spark some stuff off in ways that just highly irresponsible. It was highly irresponsible behavior. They're teenagers, right? So like the fact that they're even having a fight with the Black Israelites at a public performance of injustice in the way that they were doing, I go, oh, kids, you again, your children, you haven't learned from Uncle Pence yet. VP Mike Pence, he knows how to do that kind of awful stuff, but still kind of maintain the mask. They did not have the mask. They don't have their masks ready yet, right? So it's all super readable. So if you see the video, it's completely obvious what's going on, and it's scary. So you can see that the Black men, they're not going to back down. If they'd given an inch, they probably would have been chased. And that would have been horrible, bad optics. But also, if they had been attacked at all and then tried to defend themselves in any way, I can't even imagine what the stories that we'd be hearing today would be. I'd be very concerned about my civil rights, because they're already being chipped away. I mean, at this point, we've got the MAGA hat, alt-right, white supremacist, white nationalist, Republican, conservative sphere of culture makers and talkers. They're all telling a story that's about the Indigenous veteran somehow being in the wrong. That the young man was in fear of the Indigenous veteran playing a peace song. Yeah, we know what was going on. So, thank God that they interrupted. These Indigenous people came in and interrupted that, and I think that it was successful because it was it's a performative thing that not only they've been doing their entire lives. It's a sacred thing, but it's also generational, right? So I just want to say I am grateful for the drum. I'm now realizing that I integrate the drum into almost all of my performances of justice. And there's reasons for that. I'm now realizing, I'm like, oh, right. The drum is necessary. So thank God for the drum, but also just thank God for the bravery of those Indigenous folks, because they interrupted that performance and then were immediately attacked by 30 super hype high school students. And they were a little scared, too. So the final performance that we are experiencing right now is the storytelling that takes place, where again, it's part of the defensive mechanism. This is usually just being done by one person. Like, we see this happen all the time in our regular analog lives. digitally, what we are witnessing is that those micro engagements happening on a macro level, and you've got some folks who are very invested in a different story being understood by people. And most people aren't going to be nerdy like me, so you're welcome, America. That's why this video exists. Okay, so I am now engaging with the folks who immediately commented at me to be like, "You're wrong, shut up." So the types of things that I got were, well, you don't have all of the information. Therefore, your opinion is wrong and invalid. But none of them are backing up or doing any kind of, this is why, this is what actually happened. They're just saying, you're wrong. BS. Have you even watched the entire video? And then if you reply, yeah, I have watched the entire video and I'm still completely right, you just get back silence, or somebody being like, no, the thing that you saw in the video isn't the thing that you saw. Which is insane making, but it's part of the discourse that they're doing. A whole lot of the folks are doing bait. So there's a bunch of trolls who want to bait people, because I did. In fact, actually, let me take a moment to call myself up, possibly, although I don't think I need to. So in this moment, there's like 3 or 4 folks who are very angry that I labeled the main young man wearing the MAGA hat as cisgendered, a cisgendered white male. And I think I might have said cisgender white male appearing, because I don't want to make assumptions, right? But if that young man is part of the trans community and I have misgendered him, I would like to apologize sincerely to the MAGA hat teen kid. If you are actually part of the trans community, I apologize. But I think probably that all of those folks were not angry about that. They were angry because I used the word cis, because that indicates there's a thing that is transgender that they don't believe in, and they would like to have an argument about that. And to those folks, I can just say this: there are other spaces to have that argument. They can have an argument about whether trans identity is a thing, or gravity is a thing, or like air is a thing. They can have those arguments elsewhere. We're not going to debate things that don't need debating in our space. We don't have time for that. We're here for the work of figuring out how to be a better, more functioning, group of humans living in this country together. Yay, performances of justice. Okay, so I also I do want to kind of tie it all together. So the performative frame that I just gave for the Black Israelites, that's trolling. That's another thing that's happening inside these comment sections, right? But then there's also the muddying of the waters, where people just want to make it so that you're confused. So the folks who want to argue that if you have not seen an hour and 40 minutes of footage, your opinion is therefore invalid. That's not how it works. You can trust most of the valid journalists who watched all of that footage and are saying rather explicitly, the young boys, these young teens, were aggressive and harassing people in general, those 4 Black Israelites, and those Indigenous folks. And we can also acknowledge that things are complicated, that the Black Israelites were inciting an argument and harassing everyone around them. So we can acknowledge that as well. All of these things can be true. But I think we have to be super clear that the performance that we witnessed of the Indigenous people, that was a performance of justice. That was a performance that we should be learning from and trying to replicate. And we should be lifting up and saying thank you. And the family of that young man, the performance of denial that they are doing publicly, that they are investing a lot of money. Oh my gosh, I don't even think about how much money they are investing in creating this performance of denial. It's just heartbreaking, because I'm going to end this video with a moment of just, this is complicated. I have such deep compassion for these young people who are not yet adults. I am so sorry for them, that they are being raised to enact the worst parts of being a human, to perform the worst version of themselves. I am angry at that school. I kind of have some feelings about their parents, and that feels like I'm overstepping to even have opinions about other people's parenting. But oh my gosh, I just know so many folks who were raised that way in Montana, and it didn't serve them well. And now some of them were able to grow out of it, and we're friends, and they're like, wow, I'm angry at my parents for having done that to me. And I don't know what's going to happen 20, 30 years from now if that young man is going to be an adult who harms people, who continues to harm people in the way that he's harming people now, or if he's going to grow up to be somebody who feels bad about that, who feels bad about the harm that he did, and that he's continuing to participate in doing right now. But there's an opportunity right now, and that's what we're doing. We're calling them up. We're calling ourselves up. So I hope this was, again, useful content. This feels like 20 minutes is way too long for a video, but I don't know how to give you this kind of content in like a really efficient way. But maybe like by the time I give you like the 6th one of these, I'll have it down to 5 minutes. In the meantime, have a great week, and it was good to talk to you.